Have you ever been in a conversation where it just feels like you're talking to a brick wall? You know the feeling. It's going absolutely nowhere, except maybe straight into a huge fight. We've all been there. So today, we're going to decode those impossible conversations and give you a whole new way to handle them. Right? It's that super frustrating feeling when a discussion just completely goes off the rails. All the logic seems to just evaporate, emotions are running high, and you're just left there thinking, how in the world did we get here? It feels like the other person is speaking a completely different language, and any kind of progress is just totally out of reach. And then you might hear something like this. Now pay attention to the words liar always. They are so absolute, right? They're totally blame heavy, and they're focused 100% on attacking someone's character. This is a huge red flag that the productive part of your conversation has officially gone offline. Or maybe you get a claim that sounds more like this one. I mean, it's definitely emotionally charged, but it's also incredibly vague. Like, what does hostile even mean here? And how are they sabotaging? When a claim is this unspecific, it's pretty much impossible to respond to in any kind of productive way.
So, how do we make sense of these conversational dead ends? Well, we're going to introduce a really powerful mental model to help you understand what's really going on under the surface when a conversation totally breaks down. It's called the capacity gap decoder.
And this, right here, is the absolute core idea. This is the fundamental shift in perspective. Instead of jumping to the conclusion that the person is a liar or they're manipulative or just plain irrational, we reframe the problem. The issue isn't who they are, it's what they can't do in that very specific moment. We call this the capacity gap. And really, it's just a temporary state where a person, often because they're stressed out, loses the ability to have a conversation that's actually based in reality and is trying to find a solution. The key word here is temporary. It's not a permanent trait, it's just a state they're in. This really brings us to two very different paths. So on one hand, if you're listening for character, you're asking, who are they? And you land on labels like liar. Well, that leads straight to judgment and gridlock. But if you switch to listening for capacity, you ask, what can't they do right now? And that simple shift, it lets you start designing a much better, more effective interaction. Okay, so how do you actually spot a capacity gap in real time? Well, it turns out there are three key signals in a person's language that we can learn to decode. Signal number one is all about shared reality. This is the big one, the most fundamental capacity. Can the person ground what they are saying in things that are observable, that are verifiable? We're talking about specific dates, times, locations, direct quotes, the hard stuff. You can see the difference so clearly here. When that capacity for shared reality is there, you get these really anchored statements, like, on January 3rd at 2 p.m. you emailed. It's specific. But when it's offline, you get what we call verdicts without episodes, these huge, sweeping judgments with zero evidence to back them up. All right, our second signal is called epistemic responsibility. Now, I know, it's a bit of a mouthful, but the concept is actually pretty simple. It's just the ability to separate what you actually saw or heard, the facts, from what you think it all means, your interpretations and your assumptions. So the crucial thing to notice here is when someone starts presenting their interpretations as if they are established facts. They don't say, I think you meant to hurt me. No, they state it as a fact. The line between I feel unsafe and you are dangerous gets completely erased. This is a perfect example. The person is stating the other person's intent to hurt me and their character, evil, as if it's something they know for certain, not just an inference they've made. This is classic mind reading being presented as a fact. And our third and final signal is self-regulation and repair. Think of this one like having a brake pedal and a steering wheel for the conversation. Can the person de-escalate when things start to get heated? Can they apologize or maybe restate things to get the conversation back on track? And this just shows the stark contrast. On one side, you have someone taking responsibility, saying something like, you know what, I got heated, let me restate that. That's repair in action. On the other side, you see the exact opposite. This spiral of escalation, threats, and just a complete refusal to back down or fix any of the damage. Now that we can decode the signals, what can we actually do about it? Let's look at some really simple but powerful tools you can use to bridge that capacity gap and maybe, just maybe, make a breakthrough. Okay, this is a fantastic tool for dealing with a lack of shared reality. When someone makes one of those vague, global claims like, you always do this, you don't argue with it. Instead, you gently but firmly ask for one specific example. This forces the conversation out of the clouds of accusation and back down to the solid ground of actual concrete evidence. And for a lack of epistemic responsibility, the two-column reset is your absolute go-to tool. You can literally draw this out. In one column, you list only the video camera facts, the stuff anyone could have seen or heard. In the other, you list the interpretations. This separates the facts from the story, and it creates a space to solve the actual problem.
And what about when self-regulation is offline and the conversation is just a chaotic mess of emotions? You need to introduce some structure. These message constraints, they act like guardrails. They force the communication to be focused, to be concise, and most importantly, to include a clear, actionable request.
So let's see what this all looks like when we put it together. The transformation from a conversation that's offline to one that is capacity present, well, it's truly remarkable. Just look at the difference in this co-parenting scenario. The offline version on the left, it's pure character assassination and threats. The capacity present version on the right, though, is anchored in facts, date, time, action, and it ends with a clear request and a deadline. See, it's not about winning, it's about actually solving the problem. And here's the exact same principle, but in a professional setting. The frustration might be the same, right? But the offline version is an unwinnable fight based on mind reading. The capacity present version turns that exact same frustration into a concrete, measurable plan for moving forward. And that's really the crucial point here. This framework completely reframes our entire approach to difficult conversations. The goal is no longer to prove that you're right and they're wrong. The goal is to design an interaction using structure, clarity, and facts where a productive outcome is actually possible for everyone involved. And that brings us to our final thought. I want you to think about a tough conversation in your own life, whether it's at work or at home. Using these tools we just talked about, what is one conversation that you could redesign for success?